Okay, we're gonna go through the graphical representation of cost volume profit analysis. So they have 4 examples. Here's 4 examples, and they all have different. They change one variable about it every time. It starts out with a sales price of $10, a variable cost or unit fixed or unit variable cost of $5, a fixed cost of 10,000, and then I go from 0 units sold to 3,500 units sold. This is example 1. What we're going to do is we're going to look at this 4 different ways. So the beginning one, variable cost per unit is 5, sales price 10, and fixed cost is 10,000. Okay, that's our starting point, and we're going to change some of those variables each time we change charts here. So this is a chart of the total cost and total revenues. Where they cross is a break-even point. Now we can mathematically find that here, and we would find 2,000 as a break-even point. So notice that with a variable cost of $5, a sales price of 10, a fixed cost of 10,000, my break-even point is exactly 2,000. Now what happens if I shift my sales price? If everything else stays the same, so if I take this down here and say, okay, everything, all those 3 things the same except for I'm going to make my sales price $12 now. What's that going to do? Well, we would anticipate it making my break-even point lower, which makes sense. I'm making more money per unit. And it is. See, they cross here before 1,500. This isn't showing it very well, actually. But the break-even point should be about 14. Yeah, it's looking a little strange for some reason, but it should be 1429 is the break-even point. But it certainly shifts where they cross to the left. Okay, so it was higher over here because my sales price was lower. I have more contribution margin here, so my sales price or my contribution margin is higher, so my break-even point goes down. What happens if my sales price goes back to 10? So my unit sales price goes back to 10. My variable cost per unit is now 6, goes up to 6, and my fixed cost stays at 10,000. That shifts my break-even point over to closer to 2,500. Okay, this is the chart's a little messed up, but it should be around 2,500 is where it should be. But notice it shifts it to the right when my fixed cost, my variable cost per unit goes up. And then finally, example 4, my variable cost per unit is $5. My unit sales price is 10, but I shifted my fixed cost to being 12,000. Again, you'll see that it shifts to the right from its initial, from the first one, where it was 2,000, shifts to the right, and now it is 2,400 for the break-even point. If I have a $6 variable cost per unit, $10 sales price, and $12,000 for my fixed cost.